glorious Good Friday. Wonderful Jesus, we give you all the praise. We give you all the glory. We give you all the honor. Lord, I pray, bless your wonderful people today. Bless that one watching, that one listening. Meet every need in that one's life. And Lord, as I teach your precious word, open our hearts to receive your precious word. In Jesus' precious and wonderful name. And God's wonderful people said, Amen and Amen. And today, Good Friday, we celebrate the victory of Golgotha, the victory of the cross. I want to teach on embracing the cross. And what does it mean to embrace the cross? I want to begin by talking about Romans chapter 6, because in Romans chapter 6, there's some powerful portions. But I want you to understand something as I begin. The moment you were saved, and I was saved, we were saved from the penalty of sin. As we continue living the Christian life, we begin to be free. We are now, from day to day, being liberated from the power of sin. And when the Lord returns, we will be free completely from the presence of sin. So it's through the cross that we have been saved from the penalty of sin. And then it says in Romans 5:10, let's just actually read it. Let's go to John, the Gospel of John, chapter 5. I'll go back to Romans in just a moment. And verse 24. It says, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death to life. So through the cross, we that believe have been saved from the penalty of sin. Now in Romans chapter 5, let's go to Romans chapter 5. We're going to look at verse 10. It says, if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. All right, so we go from free from the penalty to now we are going to be free from the power of sin. So this is what you see as you read the Bible and you see the clear details in it. One of these days, when the Lord returns, we'll be free from the presence of sin, and that is in Revelation 21, verse 23 and 27. In fact, let's go read it together. That's Revelation 21, verse 23. It says, And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And then verse 27 says, And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination, or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. So, a lot of believers today, when they think about the cross and salvation, they think past tense. They know the cross has cleared their past account. They incorrectly think that they can now leave the cross behind and press into the blessings of the Christian life. But the Lord made it very, very clear in Luke that we must take the cross with us on our journey. In Luke 14, 27, and whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. So we take the cross with us. Salvation is so much more than a free pardon from the past. So, because it deals with those temptations that come from within. The cross deals with the temptations that come from within. So what the cross signifies, and this is important, the cross, people today, you see people wearing the cross, and we all love that because it's our, declaration of faith that we are believers. And you see crosses on buildings and churches and so on. But the cross, biblically speaking, has to do with the execution of a criminal. Today we would compare it to an electric chair, to a hangman's rope in some countries. The cross represents three things. Number one, shame. All that were crucified, like when the Lord was crucified, think about how shameful, how painful. The condemned man was whipped and mocked and spat upon. And the Lord in Matthew, let's go to the Gospel of Matthew 27:26 through 31, then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. That's 600 men, by the way. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. And they spit upon him and took the reed and smote him on the head. It speaks of shame. The cross speaks of shame. The procession to the execution, to the place of execution, was through a mocking crowd. A prisoner had to carry his own cross. And Jesus carried his own cross, the Bible tells us in John. So today we celebrate the victory of Calvary, but we see how he suffered in our place, in our stead. And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull. He, bearing his own cross, went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. And it says he was stripped. He was nailed naked for all to see. That's in the Psalms. Psalm 22. Let's go to it together. Psalm 22, verse 17, the last portion. I may tell all my bones, they look and stare upon me. He hung naked on the cross. The wonder is not that the Son of God became obedient to death, but to the death of the cross. The death of the cross. Was there ever a death more shameful than the death of the cross? Embracing the cross, saints, means coming to terms with the offense of the cross. Paul mentions that in Galatians 5:11. The offense of the cross is the shame of the cross, the weakness of the cross, the death of the cross. A lot of people don't want to even hear that. It represents not only shame, but weakness. Weakness. So when people are persecuted, they're mocked. And so the Lord said, when they mock you, when they persecute you, rejoice. Rejoice. Because they persecuted the prophets and the Lord himself and the apostles. Great is your reward in heaven. 300 million believers today are under persecution in the world. Think about that. And we read the stories of people getting killed for their faith joyfully, joyfully. It represents weakness, not just shame and mocking, but weakness. In Psalm 22, verse 14 and 15. Because that's what happened to the Lord 2,000 years ago on the cross. It says, I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue cleaves to my jaws, and you have brought me to the dust of death. Weakness. People are getting healed right now listening to this. Receive your healing while I'm teaching on this. Because there's healing in the atonement. That's right. Accept your healing today. He died for your salvation and your healing. Never forget the back of the cross. Because the front speaks of our salvation. But the back of the cross, he was whipped for our healing. With the stripes we are healed, remember? The cross puts a man into a place of appalling weakness and helplessness. Paul tells us that Jesus was crucified in weakness, yet he lives by the power of God. In 2 Corinthians, we read these words, chapter 13, verse 3 and 4. Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me, which to you word is not weak, but is mighty in you. For though he was crucified through weakness, yet he lives by the power of God. For we also are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God towards you. The cross is designed to bring us to the end of our own resources. The cross brings us to a place of total dependence on the Lord. Because we discover our weakness, and now we throw ourselves upon his strength. It speaks of death. Three things it represents: shame, weakness, and death. When the Lord spoke of bearing the cross, he spoke of death. To self, to the flesh, to the desires of the flesh. The cross